Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Women's Empowerment and Transformational Community. And we are starting off our podcast, and our first guest is Jennie Milton. And we are so excited to have her here. And she is kicking it off as a kick-ass girl. Hi, Jennie.
Hi, Yvonne. Thank you so much. Oh, I love being called kick-ass. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Jennie Milton, but they call me Adrenogen, like Adrenaline Jen, because I have been into extreme sports all my life. Now, maybe you've noticed with my accent that I'm not from the United States. I'm actually from down under. I am from Australia, but I'm living in the United States, and right now I am coming live to you from Valdez, Alaska. And this glacial ice cave is seriously just in my backyard. So thanks for having me today, Yvonne. I'm so excited to chat with you and your whole community.
Well, I am so glad you're here. And I cannot think of a better way to start it all off than somebody who knows fear, understands fear, and can help us overcome our fear. So, what is your take on fear?
Oh, fear is one of my best friends. A lot of people are scared of actually fear. They're fearful of the fear. But fear is something that actually it is our friend. It's something that keeps us safe. It's something that was built into us, into our primal fear response system so that we could survive in this life. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself and why I'm such a fear lover and a fear expert. I mean, we can't go to university and study fear, but the universe has granted me a life of extreme sports, extreme challenges, and extreme experiences that has really taught me a lot about fear and how to overcome fear. Now, my mum and dad had a sports shop in Canberra, Australia. Canberra is the capital city. And so, ever since I was about 2 or 3, I remember being in this sports store. And as all the new sports came in, my brother and I would get introduced to them. And we would be skiing in the winter time, and we would be windsurfing in the summertime, and skateboarding around the streets. We were always into the latest and the greatest sports. So it's no it's no joke that my brother and I actually grew up to be athletes. Now my brother, he actually lost his leg to cancer when he was 9 years old, and I think that's one of the first times that I remember in my childhood experiencing fear. I mean, being told as a 9 and I was 11-year-old that your brother has cancer and that he's going to have his leg chopped off. That's children's language for amputated. Was super scary, and I remember being given, you know, my brother was given only about a 10% chance of survival. And so that was a very traumatic time for my family. And not only was I scared as a little girl, but I saw my parents experiencing fear too, which that atmosphere was definitely super strong through our household during that time. But my brother went on to learn how to ski on one leg, and he actually became the world's best one-legged skier. He has been competing in the Paralympics since he was 14 years old, and he became the world's best one-legged skier in Salt Lake City Paralympics in what was that, 2006 or 8, somewhere around there. And he holds the world speed skiing record. So that just shows you that just because you lose a leg or just because you might have a disability or something that even you're not good at, that doesn't need to stop us from doing what we want to do in life. We just need to adaptability. And I like to call it the MacGyver mindset. So as I was growing up and doing my sports, my brother and I would be trying to figure out how he could do the sports two on one leg. And we were always, we built him a peg leg out of PVC pipe and a sanding disc on the bottom so he could go windsurfing. And then he wanted to play rollerblade hockey. And I was a big rollerblader at that point. And we designed the hockey stick end on his crutches, so he could push with his crutches, and then he could swing his skate and hit that hockey end. And he was really good at doing slap shots. You definitely didn't want to be in front of him. So I think that's one of the first times in my childhood where I experienced fear, and then I watched my brother find courage to continue on in life and adapt his mindset, adapt his equipment, adapt his skills in order to be achieve what he wanted to do. So really I had no excuse really in order to compete with my brother. But I got into my own world of sports. I loved figure skating and rollerblading, girly type sports. But my brother ended up giving me a kite for my birthday. And that one present, that one kite totally changed my life. It really did. That kite really taught me to find courage and to believe in myself. When I first got that kite, I felt like, oh my gosh, am I even going to be able to do this? I was actually a bit scared of the wind. I don't know about you guys, but wind can be really scary sometimes, especially when it's strong. But going out there and flying that kite got me outside. It got me out of my depression. I had a lot of depression in my teens and my 20s, especially dealing with my brother's cancer as the sibling. Siblings didn't get a lot of support back then. They do now, and there's some fantastic charities that are supporting the siblings. But I nearly felt guilty that I needed attention too, and that put me into some depression. And I spent a lot of time in the dark in my bedroom crying, and none of the sports that I once loved were exciting. They weren't giving me any joy. And that can be the true definition of depression, when you can't find joy even in the things that used to give you joy. But that kite got me out of my bedroom, and it took me outside into the environment, and it gave me a new challenge. And that's the word I like to call when we feel a fear now. Is that fear a threat? Or is it actually just a challenge? And I think that one word of turning that threat of fear into a challenge all of a sudden makes it exciting. And that's what happened with the kite. I went out there and I flew the kite, and all of a sudden I wasn't scared of the wind. The wind actually became my best friend. I would see the trees moving. I go, it's windy. Yay, I can go and fly my kite. And the wind is still my best friend today, because that one toy kite, you might call it, actually turned into my career in life. I became a professional kite surfer and snow kiter. For those of you who don't know what snow kiting is, it's like the winter version of kite surfing, where we fly our kites with skis or a snowboard on, and it tows us around snow covered areas, and it can even tow me up mountains here in Alaska. So that was how I started learning about fear, learning how to find courage, and discovering that if I looked at fear as a challenge and I overcame that challenge and succeeded, boy, that felt good. I felt proud of myself. I found that I was rewarded with some confidence. So fear, was the problem at times, but then courage was the solution, and confidence was the reward of that challenge. And so all of a sudden I started looking for new challenges. All of a sudden, if I felt fear, I was like, yay, I've got a new challenge that I can try and overcome.
Oh, that is such a good outlook. And it actually brings up a few things in me, because I too have a brother with cancer, had. And they are more courageous than we are as a family. And he was older, like he was married with kids, and that fear when they're diagnosed, whew, but they seem to hold it together and we don't. Like I can't even now. But they don't hold it together as we don't hold it together like they hold it together. And we feel, like you said, guilty, because who are we when they have that? They're going through, we can't even imagine. And yet they conquer it. They have a good attitude, and they seem to be so much braver because of the experience. And then I find when we are struggling, like you said, because it's like, holy cow, like, what do I even do? Because we really can't do anything. Um, the helplessness, and that even brings up more fear because we don't have any control. And I just remember, and he actually married an Australian, so he lived there, and we're in Canada, and so we couldn't eat. It's like it's not even next door. You can't even go bring them dinner to help their family out. And I just saw how brave he was, and fear wasn't even a thing right till the end. And I mean, they gave him 3 months. He lived 5 years. He's like, no, I don't accept that. And I think the people around him accepted that more than he did. And that's when I saw how his mindset shifted, and that shifted our mindset. And we were so grateful for the time we had with him. And you don't get over it, but you get through it, and you take their lessons if you can to push through it. And that's one of the things people don't realize is the trauma of the people around them, because we are helpless. And I completely relate to that. And it was a huge struggle. It's like your life is on pause, but it's really not. And so I'm glad you brought that up, and that actually kind of answers a couple of questions I was going to have. Is who inspires you the most? I think we can guess that now.
I, I think, well, before I go on, Yvonne, I'm giving you a big hug. Hug yourself, and that's from me. Yeah, because we do have that in common, and you know exactly how I feel. And it is definitely something that is difficult for the families to get through. I think that when my brother was first diagnosed with cancer, and I was young. I was only 11 or 12 years old. That's the age that little girls just want their daddy's attention, and my mum and dad really had to give all their attention to my brother, and rightly so. But at the time, I felt guilty, and my brother was being so brave, just like you said, and it's taken me many decades of growing older and wiser to realize that my brother didn't have a choice. And I think when that choice is taken away from us, you you know, really you can go down a very, very dark hole, or you can have the mindset of, okay, this is the cards I've been given. How can I play my best hands? And yes, my brother is a massive inspiration to me in sport, in mindset, in life, and I miss him dearly being in the United States. I'm like you, my brother's back home in Australia, and I miss him dearly. And he's now in his 50s, and he's still doing incredible things. In fact, in a couple of weeks, he's going to Europe to skin the hut route. And skinning is where you put it's like sticky carpet that you put on your skis so that you can ski uphill. And he's doing a mission. They're filming a documentary, so we all might get to see my brother in action once again.
Oh, that's so exciting. And another thing that you talked about was with the kite. It's a small incident. And it's super interesting to me because sometimes when we think what changes our life, and we think, a big illness, a move, a divorce, a death, but often it's the little thing. It's a kite. And I find that really fascinating because, or conversation. And even for you and I to meet, it was literally a couple minute conversation, and everyone in the room is kind of like, holy cow, we have a lot in common here. And you just never know what's going to come out of it. And so I think too, with going back to fear, is some of the times when we actually overcome the stuff in our head, it's because we for a second step out of that box and the universe brings us who or what we need. And for 11-year-old, it's a kite. For an adult, it could be a friend or someone to inspire them, someone who's been through what they've been through before. And that is exactly why I actually started this community, because I didn't have it. I didn't even know. We didn't have social media the way we do now. I did not know that I was part of the problem in my life because I kept looking outside. And when I started to actually connect with people, I realized, oh, wait a second, I have a huge role in my life with the choices I make and the decisions I make. And just like you were saying, and sometimes it's just the smallest thing. So we just need to be aware. We need to listen to the world around us, because it's bringing us stuff to help us get through our trauma or our experiences all the time. And we're just too busy being noisy. And so
That's right. And we need to remember that we are also part of the solution as well, right? I like to think that we have problems, right, and we can actually make those problems worse in our, especially we're having the wrong mindset to deal with that. But we can be problem solvers as well, and I think that's what my brother taught me with that MacGyver mindset. About, I mean, it's exciting when there's a problem now because I have the chance to fix it. And it feels so good when we find a solution, or we fix that problem, or we overcome that challenge. And I hope you all can embrace the MacGyver mindset as well this week.
oh, I'm sure we will. And it's just building courage. It can start small and build bigger and bigger, because we try to do everything at once and you can't. You have to break it down to steps of courage more than a box
Yeah.
full of courage.
And one of the things I love to talk about, especially when I'm on the stage in front of big groups, is I love to remind people that we all have this primal fear response inside us. We've all heard of the fight, the flight, or the freeze, right? And there's actually a fourth one, fawn. And those are all responses to fear, and they are naturally inside our bodies. We naturally need to sleep, we naturally need to eat, and we all have natural fear responses. And so I like to talk about fear tolerance. Right, we have this fear tolerance, and I think that many people, especially if they're not doing anything scary like sports in their life, maybe their fear tolerance isn't very big, and so they feel fear, and it might just be, fear of not being good enough, fear of failing, fear of public speaking, fear of posting on social media is a huge one these days, right? Fear of regret. There's so many fears that people are fearing, and what happens is that primal fear response comes in, and do you know which one is your go-to? We all sort of have a go-to fear response, and it's kind of funny that I'm a professional kite flyer, and my fear response is flight.
Oh,
I'm
mine's
that
freeze. I'm like,
you're
the world
freeze.
stops. Yeah, I'm a freezer.
Right. So I think it's a really good exercise for us all to realize what our natural fear response is. And if you talk to my mum, or you talk to any of the girls I went to school with, I was a natural scaredy cat. I mean, if you look at my social media or hear some of my stories of skiing big mountains or being in the big waves in the ocean, you might think that I'm fearless. And I'm not a big fan of that word fearless, because as I've already mentioned, we need fear to keep us safe. But I remember when I was at school, going to school swimming, and they had the diving board levels, and we were just jumping off the small bouncy one into the pool, and then it was time to walk up the ladder to get to the first dive board, and we all went up there, and all my girlfriends were jumping off this thing, and I was just scared. I was petrified, and I seriously couldn't do it. I made the decision to run away. I had to get all the girls off that ladder that were trying to climb up so I could climb down, right? And my mum's got this photograph of me absolutely crying on the chairlift at a ski resort. Now, I'm a professional skier these days, and when I started, I was petrified of being on the chairlift just going up the mountain, let alone skiing down. So, overcoming fear wasn't something that came naturally to me. I think maybe there's some boys and men out there that naturally just possibly fearless, but that can get them into trouble. Whereas women, we have this survival instinct. And so I remember only about 5 years ago now, I was up in Alaska and I got the opportunity. What an incredible, I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to go to a remote village to teach the Inuit kids how to fly kites, right? So when you think about, oh my gosh, this kite helped Jennie overcome her fear. This kite was what gave me a professional career as an athlete. It also has given me a professional career as an entrepreneur. And I have taught thousands of people how to fly kites, including these little Inuit kids up in Alaska. And this village that they're in is in the middle of nowhere, right on the north coast of Alaska, past the Arctic Circle, and it was famous for polar bears. And I just love polar bears. It's my spirit animal, right? We should all take a page out of the polar bears book because the polar bears are the most patient animal in the kingdom. They wait in their den, not moving for days or weeks until they see a seal, and then they use their energy to go and pounce and survive. And so I was fascinated and I wanted to see a polar bear. I'd seen them once before on a trip. And I was told when I got there that this was the wrong time of year, Jen. All the polar bears are out on the ice, and I was a bit disappointed, but it was just fascinating being there because everybody had pictures of polar bears in their restaurants and houses and in the school and things like that. And one night it was nearly midnight and the sun was going to set, right? That's how far north we are. And the other teachers that I was with said, "Hey, let's go and watch the sunset at midnight. We'll walk the dogs. Jen, grab your kite." What an incredible experience to fly your kite at midnight with the setting sun. And so I took my kite out there and I was flying my kite. And the next thing I know, one of the girls yells, "Bear, bear!" And I look over, and there is a polar bear charging towards me. And it wasn't coming from a distance. There'd been a snowbank, and it had come over the snowbank, and it was close enough for me to be looking in that polar bear's eyes. And I instantly, it didn't matter how many posters I'd seen saying, "Don't run, wave your hands, yell, 'Hey bear, hey bear.'" My primal fear response kicked in, and I've never felt it so strong in my life because that is what our primal fear response is designed for, to protect us from wild animals. And I turned and I ran. And I remember seeing the back of the other people that I was with, and they were all running too. And just for a second, that gave me the confidence that I was doing the right thing. But all of a sudden, bam, I fell down flat on my face, right? And I didn't quite know why or how or what had happened. But as I was getting up and I looked over at that polar bear again, and I could just see its big floppy feet running towards me, and it was getting really close now. I thought to myself, boy, Jen, this could be it. You know, this could be the end, and it's going to be, an interaction with a polar bear. I realized that I was still attached to my kite. When we're flying a kite, we have a leash attached to us so that if we let go of the kite, it doesn't just blow away, and we would have to run after it to chase it down. So we wear a leash. And so when I'd seen the bear, I'd let go of the kite and I'd started running, but the wind was blowing one direction, I was running the other. And so all of a sudden that kite became an anchor and I had landed flat on my face. And so as I got up, I realized that that polar bear was still charging towards me, and I realized I had to get that Velcro wrist leash off. And it took me a few minutes. The guy behind me had turned around and seen that I was in trouble, and he had stopped and he started waving his arms and yelling. And uh, it felt like it took forever, but it was really probably only a couple of seconds where I got that leash off, and my best friend, the wind, blew that kite away, and the bear turned and chased my kite. So all of a sudden, that one kite as a 12-year-old that helped me build courage, that kite had now saved my life, and I had time to run away.
Wow, that's fear at its finest, and how the system works. I was actually just going to ask you, can you explain fawn to the viewers, because most of them will have to run off and Google it, and this way they can stay with us.
Yeah, please, please. That's after the talk. Go and Google fawn, because it's actually something that we all in this modern world experience quite a lot. And fawn is our response of appeasing others. It's when we might be in an argument with somebody, and I don't know about you guys. I don't like confrontation. I want to get out of there as fast as possible. If it was my choice, I'd run away. But as adults, we can't always run away when we're having a conversation that's very uncomfortable with somebody. And fawn is where we might choose to put our own needs second and just say to that person what they want to hear in order to get out of that particular situation. And you'll see that a lot in relationships, abusive relationships, that one partner is the abuser, the other partner will say what they want to hear, do what they want them to do, and even convince themselves that no, they really love me and I'm going to stick with them through this. And you put your own needs second behind that. Is that making sense, Yvonne?
Oh, I was aware of what it was, but I think a lot of people aren't, because I think nowadays that's, especially when a lot of people in the community, we're here because of trauma. I mean, we all have trauma, and a lot of it is from relationships, whether it be a parent or a sibling or a partner. And we don't even realize we do fawn, and that is a default, and it can get us into a lot of trouble, because we're giving ourselves up to appease others, and it's really people pleasing, as
Yeah.
another word for it. And it does
Yep.
not serve us at all, because it's not allowing us to be our authentic selves. But we don't think of it as a primal fear, but it's really, we're just trying to survive what is in front of us. You can't
That
use fawn
that's
on a
that's
polar
right.
bear, but you can use fawn on a partner.
That's exactly right. And I think that when we say people pleaser, it's something that we fault ourselves on. It's something that we think we've created that problem of being a people pleaser. And I was a people pleaser for a long time. Whereas if we can actually realize that fawn is a primal fear response that's built into us, just like fight and flight and freeze, fawn is also a primal response. And once we are aware of our primal responses and we're aware of which one we use at times, then we can choose to maybe do something differently, but we have to be aware of our actions first and understand that. So yeah, please go and do some research on fawn and see if you can identify some times when we have actually used fawn to get us out of trouble. You know, these are primal fear responses that were designed in our body for survival, and so they're good things, right? But we need to, in this modern world, I think that we're using those primal fear responses in situations that aren't life and death, right? Um, going live on social media is a fear people run away from. But if you went live on social media, would you die? Like, it's not a life or death scenario. And that's where we need to remind ourselves that, okay, I'm not going to die. I can do this. The benefits are going to outweigh the negatives. Let's do this. Let's find that courage. Yeah. Right.
It's true. And I think fawn is more of an primal emotional need, and we're used to the physical. So we don't associate it with survival. But really, if we ousted ourselves out of our community, we would die in the old days. But we don't anymore. And we still use that. So I think sometimes people just think physical survival, and fawn is emotional survival.
Great point. That's such a great point, Yvonne. And if we can identify that we are going into that fawn state, that's a reminder that our body feels like it needs to survive, and that's not a healthy emotion or feeling to live in for too long. You know, those primal fear responses are supposed to be something that gets us out of the problem very quickly. But in this modern world, we're finding ourselves, especially with fawn, that we're staying in that survival mode for too long. And the consequences of that is anxiety, overwhelm, stress, depression, right? And so if we and then they become the problems. It's like, oh, I've got depression, I have to solve my depression. But if we actually look closely into it, it could be caused because we're spending too long in fawn.
I think so. And I think it's normalized now, and it can't be normalized. Sometimes it's been literally 40 years. People have shoved these emotions down and have been people pleasing their whole life. Going back to when you were a child, even you didn't feel you could express to your parents, I need attention too, because you know your brother needs it more. And he didn't ask for it, he just needs it. It's the way it is. And so we really suppress it because we don't want to be told you're not important. We feel not important, but we don't want to be told, no, you don't have priority right now. This has priority. And I think that's when we go, okay, what can I do? Kind of, but from the wrong place, from fawn instead of from, it's different for an adult because we're more sometimes, sometimes we're a bit more mature. But, but we can kind of twist it to a different, not twist it in a bad way, but turn it around into helping and actually being able to express ourselves. We can use social media to look up what we can do instead. We have a lot of options that I don't think kids have. And that's where a lot of trauma starts, is as a child. And we just do
That's
the
right.
same, we just do the same thing. Okay, it kept us alive. We're going to keep doing the same thing. And then you're like, I'm in my mid 50s and I'm like, I'm still doing the same things. And now the last few years has been, okay, become aware and try to break the cycles, because, most of us are fawners.
Yeah, it was my birthday yesterday and I just turned 54. So I'm in my mid 50s too, Yvonne. Excuse me. And I've realized that I'm getting wiser. I'm getting older, but I'm getting wiser. And one of the things that I've realized is that when I was a little girl, all I wanted was my parents to be proud of me. And I think most of us can relate to that. We want our parents to be so proud of us, and we end up doing things just to try and get get them to be proud of us. This is the start of our people pleasing, right? And then we go into our 20s, and we're at university, we're starting our first jobs, we're shopping around for boyfriends. And again, we are people pleasing. We're trying to impress our peers in our 20s. And so again, we are becoming that people pleaser. And then in our 30s and 40s, we start, things start settling down. But it's not until my 50s that I realized that all I care about now is being proud of myself. And I wish that I had gotten to this point decades earlier, because it's a wonderful feeling to actually care so much about ourselves that we just want ourselves to be proud, so that when our time is finished on this earth, that we just feel so good about ourselves, and we can be proud of what we've done and proud of the legacy that we've left, and all the mistakes that were done in our 20s and 30s, that maybe caused us some shame, are irrelevant, because we've spent the second half of our lives, being proud of ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why I decided last year to write a book, and to write about my feelings as a little girl when my brother got cancer. And I'm proud of that.
I'm proud of you too. And I think it is when we hit around 50. I don't know. I think just more has happened then, where we really start to reevaluate. But you don't care about other people's opinions as much, but we're so programmed in our subconscious mind. We recognize, like, I'll be like, okay, I really don't care about that anymore. But it's awareness. But awareness is just the start of the healing. So when you're like, okay, that's toxic, I need to leave. But then it's like, okay, now what? Like, I know I had to do that, but I don't know what to do now, which is exactly why I started this community, because I was so lost. I had no idea what to do. That I didn't even think to go check on YouTube if there was an issue, something that explained it. Like, what do you even Google for that? And it's deep. It's really deep. So that's why I wanted to get the resources together, because it's really a resource center, because everybody's story is a little bit different, but the base is always the same. And it's exactly, we were people pleasing, we were trying to survive, and we forgot there's no polar bear chasing us anymore.
That is exactly right, Yvonne. I love that.
Speaking of polar bears, did you choose that as your spirit animal before the polar bear chased you, or after that were you like, I need that as my spirit animal?